I am so excited to share my latest resource, downloadable print your own flashcard decks. These have been created following my many years working with children of all abilities in the clinical setting, and my themed flashcard decks work. The kids love them because they're engaging and they encourage movement, learning, coping skills, and just plain fun. From dinosaurs to Halloween, each deck includes suggested and themed centering techniques, warm-ups, guided meditation, relaxation, yoga-based movement, and games. Each card in the deck includes multiple yoga-based practices to choose from, meaning you can enjoy a different experience each time you play, and there will always be something that's suitable and accessible for the child you are working with or the setting you are working in. These are highly adaptable tools, and they work in the classroom, hospital, office, or home setting. Download and print on card or paper stock of your choice and enjoy creative, adaptable, and accessible adventures for many years to come with children of all abilities and in all settings. I promise you will not regret adding a set of 2 of these to your resource collection. And keep checking in. I have created a lot of these decks over the many years I worked in the clinical setting with children of all abilities, and I'm slowly updating and releasing them to the public so that all children can benefit from these wonderful tools. Hi, I'm Lisa Roberts, and welcome to Movement Meditation and Mindfulness, a training program for pediatric professionals, educators, and parents. Today's session is session number 10 in this series, and it's Essential Elements Part 3, and we'll be exploring how to incorporate equipment, props, themes, music, and song into your movement meditation and mindfulness sessions for children. This is to support children so they are safe, so that your sessions are developmentally appropriate, developmentally supportive, and of course, engaging and fun. So as I've mentioned before in previous webinars, my movement meditation and mindfulness training program and the methods I use when I'm teaching and working with children are yoga-based. So we use a lot, and we talk a lot about traditional yoga equipment, such as yoga mats, chairs for adaptive yoga, straps, yoga blocks, bolsters, sandbags, and exercise balls I use a lot as well. And we're going to break this down and explore these one by one in just a moment. You may not have access to traditional yoga equipment, and that's okay. We're going to explore alternate props and things you can use that you may even just find around the house, so you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on props right away when you're just starting to explore this, especially if you're working one-on-one with your own children. Also, you may have access to these props, but you may have access to adult-sized props. Kids are developing. They come in all shapes and sizes. And some of the adult-sized traditional yoga props just may not work for a small child. So I'm going to explore some alternatives so that you can start thinking outside of the box and be prepared for any situation that arises when you're working with children. So we'll begin actually with a little video I've created exploring some of these traditional yoga props, how to use them, and also as we're exploring these yoga props, I'll guide you through some alternative solutions that you may have access to support children. Hi, so as you can see, I'm sitting on a yoga mat and I'm surrounded by props. So I'm going to explore just some of the different props I use when I'm teaching movement, meditation, and mindfulness to children. It's not one size fits all. Children are all different. Children you work with will be at different developmental stages, and some may have some sensory processing disorder, or they may have some mobility restrictions. And then we've got to think outside of the box and find the best way to support each child as an individual. So my work is yoga based, and so when I've demonstrated some of the traditional yoga postures and stretches, we've talked about traditional yoga equipment, but you don't need that. I'm going to show you some of the traditional yoga equipment I use today, but we're going to talk about alternate props that you can use in place of these if you don't have access to them, or if you're just want to broaden your perspective and your mind and open it up to being able to use a lot of different things to support kids. So I'm sitting on a yoga mat today. It's a traditional, say 3 to 4 millimeter thickness. What I love about yoga mats when I'm teaching movement, meditation, and mindfulness is not only does it keep kids safe because of the support and the non-slip, they're kind of grippy when you have bare feet and you can't slip on them, or it's difficult to slip on them, I should say. I shouldn't say can't, you never know. But it gives a child their own space. So if you're teaching a group, it's really wonderful because you can provide a boundary and an idea of space so that the children will all stay in their own space and hopefully no one can get hurt. Or it also helps you with your class management as well by keeping children in their own space, which is wonderful. I love to point this out to kids. It's like, this is to keep you safe, but also, oh, this, feel your whole mat, this is your space. And a lot of kids don't have their own space. They have a lot of siblings, or there's a lot of kids in their class, and just to have something to call their own space is very, very special. But also, it's what's going to help keep children safe. If you are teaching a group and you're not teaching privately, if you're teaching a group, you'll have it set up so you can see all the kids and they can see you. So if you've got these little areas and you know where kids are going to be, you know that they can see you and you can see them. And that's also going to help them learn and help keep children safe. Now you don't have a yoga mat, no problem. Towels work, squares of carpet. I've taught on a large carpet where I've marked out with painter's tape what would be the size of a traditional yoga mat. So the children are just practicing on the same carpet, but their space is marked out with painter's tape. So they still all have their own individual areas to work in. PT mats are great, especially with children with special needs that might need that extra support. They're nice, thick, solid mats. I find them very helpful when I'm teaching privately as well. So, yoga straps. This is the traditional yoga strap. It's got a loop at one end, so you can loop it through. I won't do it right now, but you've seen me do it if you've seen the previous webinars where we've explored traditional yoga postures, and you'll see me, I've used these and shown the different ways you can use the strap to support the body. Now, if you don't have a strap, alternates are I have a rubber PT band here. This can be helpful instead of a strap. You could use a belt. You could even use a towel. If you roll a towel lengthways, you could use a towel to loop it around the body part and use it as support. So, don't need a yoga mat, don't need a yoga strap. They're helpful, but there are alternates. Now, yoga blocks. I have two here, just because these are two different sizes. So yoga blocks can be used on different heights. So we have a low setting, a medium setting, and a high setting. So you can get a lot of use out of a yoga block. If you don't have a yoga block, you can use a book. You can use folded up towels. You can use small cushions. All very, very helpful if you don't have a yoga block. Some of my kids, particularly kids who are hypersensitive I should say, meaning that they're very sensitive to touch. These may be too hard, too firm. And so something softer, like a folded towel or a folded blanket or a cushion to provide the same purpose as a block is much more palatable for these children. If a child doesn't feel comfortable, they're not going to be able to let go and relax. It's very important during a movement meditation mindfulness session that the child feels supported so that they can really truly let go and enjoy the experience, particularly when we're doing more restorative style stretching, which we'll explore in a future webinar. We're also going to do an entire webinar on sensory processing. So when you are working with children who may have difficulties with sensory processing, we're going to explore how movement meditation and mindfulness can support them, and also how you as a teacher can support them by helping children explore what works for them. So we also have sandbags. Now this is a sandbag, so it's a good solid canvas bag that zips open. I actually have a bag of rice in here, not sand, but you can get traditional sand bags from PT stores or OT stores. I got this from a yoga, like an online yoga store, and you can just fill it up with something that's weighted. This one is fairly heavy. These are great, again, for children with sensory processing disorders. However, just for general adult and children classes, they're a nice reminder because they're weighted. And just to place them on the belly during relaxation, you just feel nice, safe, secure, and just that extra weight just sends the message to the nervous system, hey, it's time to calm down, it's time to relax. I also use these, just as I mentioned, like a block. You can use your sandbag to support the body. I use the sandbags as little cushions for the hands when I'm in a relaxation pose. So there's lots of different uses for the sandbags. Primarily it is just that time to relax, but as I said, they can be used as support as well. So they're very handy. If you don't have a sandbag, you can use a bag of rice. You can use, you can wrap it in a towel if you don't want just the bag of rice on display, because it can be a distraction with young children. You can put it in a pillowcase and wrap it around and then use it. You could use a bag of flour. So there's lots of different options. If you don't have a sandbag, you don't need to rush out and buy sandbags. Eye pillows, again, to place over the eyes, sending the message to the nervous system, hey, it's time to calm down, it's time to relax. It closes out any light and really helps to promote relaxation. We're going to explore making our own eye pillows in a future webinar. But these are, again, just standard ones. I do recommend, if you're using eye pillows that are going to be reused, meaning this does not belong to the child, it's not theirs to keep and theirs only, placing a tissue and explaining to the child, hey, this is just to keep you safe so that you know it's clean and safe. So you place a tissue, a Kleenex, over the eyes and then put the pillow on top of that. Never put a communal eye pillow directly on someone's eyes when it's been used by somebody else and you're planning to use it with somebody else. It's a big no-no. So that tissue will act as a barrier, or even better, everybody gets their own eye pillows. So you'll make them or you'll have them purchased, and that's part of the program packaging. You get your own yoga mat, you get your own eye pillow, whatever it is you're planning with your program, that you can make this part of it. Or you don't use them at all, is another option. So an exercise ball is a wonderful tool for movement meditation and mindfulness. You've seen me use it when we discussed breathing. I use it a lot in movement too. In the previous webinars where we explored traditional yoga postures and stretches, we did not show this. I'm going to show it further along in a future webinar on sensory processing, because these can be a really helpful tool for children who require additional sensory support when they're moving their body and finding the shapes in their body of those traditional yoga poses and stretches. So I'm just going to give one example now of a forward fold, but this is coming up in a future webinar. I just wanted to show it as a prop that is a very helpful tool in yoga. So, or movement meditation and mindfulness, yoga-based movement meditation and mindfulness. So I'm just sitting ready to do my traditional forward fold, and then I'm going to roll the ball out. So I'm getting a lot of input on my legs as I roll out, but at the same time I'm getting support from the ball. So if a traditional forward fold is just not accessible for me, this is a great way to provide support, but also some sensory input at the same time. And rolling the ball gives me a lot of control over how far I go. So if this is as far as I could go and my hamstrings were really tight, then I could just stop here and breathe. And then as my body's ready, just gently start to roll forward a little more and slowly take myself deeper. So we're going to explore how to incorporate this in movement a lot more in a future webinar, but just a really wonderful tool. And as I demonstrated in previous webinars, very helpful tool for breathing. Kids love them, and they're fun to play with too. They're fun just to give a little massage along the body as well while children are relaxing in relaxation pose. So lots of uses for an exercise ball in your movement meditation and mindfulness practice. And so these are for my kids who are still developing their gross motor skills and just their body awareness and still developing. Sometimes verbal and even visual in terms of demonstration, instruction doesn't help. The kiddos find their body shapes in their practice. So these can just be helpful additional visual cues and support. Let's place your hands on the green hands. And sometimes, and we'll talk about this in a future webinar, again, when we're talking about, again, particularly kids with sensory processing or developmental delays. We'll go into this in detail too, but maybe we have a different color. We're learning our left and rights, can be helpful. And we might use some washable paint and put a yellow dot on the right hand and a green dot on the left. So you're putting your green dot on the green hand, your yellow dot on the yellow hand, and that can just help with placement. So these are just a handy thing to have in your toolbox. Usually I use these single use only, so my kiddos keep them. They bring them back to their own practice if we're working together again, or it's something they can keep and take home and play with. Just because they're foam, they're not really easy to wipe down and keep clean. So single use is better, or just like the eye pillow, if it belongs to the child and they're going to use them only over and over, and you're working with them a lot, they can bring them same ones back to their own session. And then finally we have a bolster. So this is the traditional yoga bolster. And I'll just demonstrate a simple restorative back bend on the bolster. So this goes great for me, but if I was a teeny tiny 2 or 3-year-old, this would be way, way, way too much. It would be too deep a back bend and it would actually hurt the back. And there's so many uses for the yoga bolster in movement meditation and mindfulness, but that's just a little example. So a pillow, a little bit softer. And for a smaller child, this would be ample support. So, and even just the traditional restorative laying on the back with the bolster under the knees for relaxation, that's great on me and an older child. It may be too much for a kid with legs that are only this long. So finding the right tool for a younger child, just having a lot of different things on hands and keeping the mind open. You don't always need a yoga bolster. If something you're looking at or referring to refers to a yoga bolster, but then you say, hey, that's going to be too big for my kid. Let me find something that works so that the child feels safe and supported and not uncomfortable. And then finally, we don't always practice on a yoga mat. Maybe we're using a chair. So you'll see the chair I'm using is nice and sturdy, and I have all 4 legs of the chair on a yoga mat, so it's gripped, so it doesn't move, so we're nice and safe. Now, if we're in a carpeted room, the carpet may be fine, so you just want to make sure that the chair is sturdy and safe before you offer it for a movement practice. And of course, as we have explored in a couple of previous webinars, we also adapt for practices that can be accessed in the bed. And we'll explore that further along too when we get into movement, meditation, and mindfulness for the clinical setting. So we are yoga based. I refer to traditional yoga props, but as you can see, you don't need traditional yoga props. You need a broad mind and the vision to see what's in front of you and what a child truly needs to feel supported. So a little bit of outside of the box thinking. This is just a small example. And as we work through these webinars, I'll be showing you a lot more different props and alternative props that I have used during my career working with kids of all abilities. So musical. Okay, so that was just a little bit about traditional yoga props. Well, actually, it was quite a lot, but I'm hoping that helps you really be able to support children well, regardless of what situations you're presented with. So we'll move on to more, when I talk about props, not so much equipment to support the body, but props that you can incorporate into your sessions to make them fun and playful and engaging for children. And why would we use fun, engaging, playful props in movement, meditation, and mindfulness? If you've attended some of the previous sessions with me or viewed some of the previous sessions, you would have seen how we incorporate playful props to teach meditation and mindfulness for children, and it's the same with movement. So props can stimulate the senses to support sensory development. We're getting a lot of fun input with the props, whether it's listening to sound or seeing the colors or feeling the shapes. They create a sense of fun and playfulness for your sessions, so that helps to engage children in movement, meditation, and mindfulness. If it's playful, if it's colorful, if it's fun, if children's senses are being stimulated, they're going to want to play. We can support, as you saw with the example with the hands, the little markers that I put on the mat. So props can be supported by providing visual cues. So that was for placement. They can also simply provide visual cues for what you're demonstrating. For example, if you're doing an animal theme and you mention an animal that a child's not familiar with, but you have the visual cue. So then we're supporting the learning to identify that particular animal or shape, if we're doing shapes. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in theming, how we can incorporate educational subjects for children into movement, meditation, and mindfulness to support kinesthetic learning. So visual cues and tactile input as well. Perhaps we feel a shape. And I've got some props that I'm going to show you. I've got a whole little pile of props here in my room, and when we get to it, I'm going to go through a bunch of them and show you how I use them. So we have some shape ones, and I'll show you how we use those for tactile input as well. Props, because of this sense of playfulness and engagement, we're looking a little bit at social development too, because if we're incorporating props in the session, we're teaching children how to share, how to wait their turn, how to trade. For example, if you're giving a feather to every child, then we can start teaching children to say, hey, if you want to switch color with a friend, and ask if they'd be willing to switch with you. If someone else has one that, I love purple and I only got a blue one, would you like to trade with me? For example. So we're teaching social skills and social cues as well. So fun props, You can see on the screen here, we're playing with a parachute here in a session. So there's fun ways to bring a parachute into group sessions. We have a little kiddo under the parachute playing as we're taking it up and down. You can bounce a ball on top of the parachute, and there's lots of little different games you can play with parachutes. I've had them lift up and a child runs under and does a yoga-based move or stretch and then runs to the other side, and we take turns. So lots and lots of playful ways, but it provides a lot of sensory input, provides a lot of teamwork and communication as well as we're playing, and of course, most importantly, a whole lot of fun. I'm going to play a video again just with some of these props. It was just easier for me to shoot a video to demonstrate the use, and then I'm going to talk you through a whole bunch of props that I have on my desk just to start inspiring you. There's no solid list of props that you must run out and buy today in order to work with children and teach movement, meditation, and mindfulness in a beneficial way. However, my goal here today is just to show you a nice cross section of props that I have found helpful and to inspire you to start thinking. There's so many fun things that you can just find, probably if you work with children already, just looking in your own box of tricks right now. Oh, I could use this. That inspiration, that spark will come. And I'm hoping it comes today after sharing a bunch of the props that I find really helpful. So we'll go straight to the video. We're starting with musical instruments.
Props that create sound and vibration are wonderful tools to incorporate in your movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions. So we'll explore a few that I use on a regular basis right now. We have some maracas, and these are just little plastic sound makers that I found either at a dollar store or Oriental Trading or one of those kind of places. You'll notice that they're nice and bright and colorful. So we want to stimulate the senses. So bright, colorful, eye-catching, playful, sound-making props are all wonderful tools to incorporate in sessions with children. So I have shaker eggs as well. And I play with kids, we can do some tricky core by picking up the shaker egg with the feet and trying to shake it. So we really can bring some playful elements in to these sessions using the props. We have bells. And if you attended the webinar or want to go back and view the webinar on meditation and active meditation for children, you'll see how we incorporated bells and sound to really be mindful and try to place the bell down. There's a game called the bell game where we place the bell without making a sound. And we get tricky, we do it with 2 bells and multiple bells. You can do it with both hands. So they're fun tools to introduce some mindfulness for children as well. Chimes are a great tool. I like these for class management as well. But we can play, and again, if you review some of my previous webinars on mindfulness for children, the chime is a wonderful tool, but you can incorporate them in your general sessions as well. So we can make the sound and have the children listen and follow the sound all the way to the end. So we really focus on the sound. And then when we can no longer hear the sound, we will raise our hand. That's a really common mindfulness game I play with either large groups or even individuals. The sound can be created, and this can be used as a class management tool. Just at the beginning, when you set up the boundaries of the class and the expectations, just, hey, if you hear this sound, we're going to stop talking, stop what we're doing, and raise our hand. And that way you can get everybody's attention in a non-confrontational, peaceful way, harmonious way. And it's just a nice way also to introduce sound and listening and communication into the session. And then I like to give the children uses as almost like a talking stick at the end of a session to ring the chime, to get everybody's attention and express what they felt about the class, what they enjoyed, what they didn't like, anything they want to share, and then pass it along to the next person. So whoever rings the chime It's their moment to speak and everybody else listens, and we share that opportunity so everybody can be heard. So they're just some of the simple ways we can use the chime. Children respond really well to sound. We, as humans, respond to sound. And then I have the singing bowl. So this is a traditional singing bowl. We're going to place it on my palm, and you'll notice I'm not holding on tight. My palm is flat. And this is great for children to explore sound, but I think it's also a wonderful lesson when you see how it's played. A little bit of philosophy comes into it. So I'm just going to play it for now just so we can enjoy the sound. Notice as I slowly go around with the stick on the bowl, it begins to get stronger. Ooh. So some of them make really beautiful sounds. I do work with children, so this one's been beat up a little bit over the years, because younger kids will come along and dong it when they're learning to play it, maybe hit it a little too hard. So if you're going to invest in a singing bowl or a chime and you are working with children, I do recommend just getting a very basic budget one. You don't need to get the rare ancient Tibetan singing bowl when you're working with children, unless you want to, of course. It's a personal choice. So again, just the philosophy. I love playing this and introducing this to children and giving them a turn to play it. And some children, sometimes we just lay and listen to the sound. You can have a sound, what they call a sound bath, where we just listen to the vibrational sound and use that as meditation. But I love to give children the chance to play this and explore, because if I'm sitting up, I'm nice and relaxed. I'm not holding on tight. The minute I hold on tight, the music stops. The bowl won't sing. If I'm hunched up and going like this, the bowl won't sing. But if I'm relaxed, if I'm breathing, my hand is relaxed and I'm not holding on tight, I'm not forcing it to happen. If I'm patient and relaxed, the bowl will sing. The minute I try to force it, the bowl stops singing. And we want this at a steady pace too. We just want to be nice and relaxed and even, not in a hurry, just this very gentle pressure I'm applying and a nice steady pace. I'm moving the stick around the edge of the bowl, and that's allowing the bowl to sing. So you can see there's some wonderful philosophic lessons in that, some life lessons, just from the simple playing of the singing bowl and getting the bowl to sing. So that's just some fun musical instruments you can incorporate in your session. Obviously, it's broad. There are many other things you can bring in, but these are just some of the simple tools that I use on a regular basis. So I have some little finger puppets here with me today. I have a dolphin. I'll bring them just a little bit closer so you can see it. So we have a dolphin. We have an elephant, just pops onto the finger, and then we have a lion. And I have tons of different ones, and these are just really fun for children to play with and incorporate into your movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions. We can tell little stories and make up little stories about the puppets, and be creative in our expression that way, and just explore general creativity. And then, of course, we can create little yoga practices, yoga-based practices, movement, meditation, mindfulness practices that pertain to the different characters, or even retell the story through movement, meditation, and mindfulness activities. I'm also very sneaky with these. So, two things I regularly use my finger puppets for. Sneaky core. So, just because they're finger puppets, they don't have to only go on the finger. I will often pop them on a child's toe and tell them, look, what did you get? So they have to look up to see what's on their foot, oh, I got the lion today. So this is a sneaky way to do core that's fun for children. And again, thinking outside the box, just because they're finger puppets, they don't only have to go on the fingers. I also use them to help recenter children during a practice. So if we're exploring movement and meditation and mindfulness using these, using finger puppets, for example, because this one is a jungle-based one, we might set up our adventure where we've created the jungle scene, and then I ask the child to be a rock. So they'll come into child's pose with their thumb up, and we see which animal is going to pop along and sit on their rock. Then as they come out, then we'll create the lion and do whatever practice, whether that's a breathing technique or a mindfulness technique or a stretch, a yoga-based stretch or some kind of movement. And maybe it's a combination of those. And then in between, and this helps me manage arousal levels if that gets children excited and we need to recenter in between each activity, then we come back to being a rock, and perhaps the next animal will come along as the child is sitting in their rock and come along. So there's lots of different ways to use props other than just having them as your cue for each activity. We can use them in so many different ways to benefit children during the movement, meditation, and mindfulness session. And I do all kinds of different ones. You know, it doesn't have to be a rock. We can do a dinosaur egg for dinosaurs and see what kind of dinosaur is inside the egg, and it hatches every time. So just a little bit of creativity, and we'll talk more about this when we come to theming in this webinar series. But because we are on props today, I just wanted to show you different ways to use props and to align with my whole outside of the box thinking and my philosophy on planning fun and creative movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions for children. You know, you can think outside of the box with your props too. Bean bags are a wonderful prop for movement, meditation, and mindfulness. They're nice and squishy, so you can use them as a stress toy for stress tests, where we kind of squeeze and really test how we respond to stress. They could almost be used like a stress ball as well for children, just to squeeze and release, squeeze and release. But here's what I love to use bean bags for. So they're educational, because we have different colors and different shapes. So these ones are actually my shaped bean bags. I have a couple of sets of these, and they explore different shapes and colors. So for children who are learning this, this is a wonderful way to learn this in a tactile, kinesthetic manner. They're also colorful, so if a child is learning their colors, you can incorporate that into the session too, while playing with the bean bags. So I love to challenge kids, and this is a really wonderful way, again, if the arousal levels are up and kids are excitable or they're having trouble moving mindfully, to help kids to slow down, but in a fun, playful, challenging way. So we make it a game, and we place the beanbag on the head, and then we have to move a lot more mindfully as we're doing our movement. So I'll maybe do a twist now, and you can get a lot more challenging with this. I often do, we can do standing poses and movement between poses. Obviously you can't do downward dog or anything like that, but if you can just play around with it, make it a game, make it fun. Often if I have children where the beanbag is slipping constantly, you know, we'll just make a little joke about it and tell them, oh, it just means your hair is clean. I never want a child to feel bad if they're not. Traffic cones, so they're nice and colorful. These are a great tool to bring into your movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions. Today I've got two set up at the end of my mat for a game of air soccer. I'm going to blow through the straw and get the pom-pom through my soccer goal. But you could set these up for a game of golf and have these as markers for the golf holes. And that's a game that's in my book, Teach Your Child Yoga, or available on my website, on my blog as well, if you want to know more about that when we do games. So you can play a lot of different games using the traffic cones as markers. I like to use them in my sessions as well, where we can place a flashcard, attach a flashcard to the cone, and if we're doing any movement sessions where we're moving around the room and when we stop on a yoga mat with a traffic cone in front of it, the flashcard has the activity that we're going to do on each mat. So you can kind of make it like a little obstacle course. So lots of ways to use the traffic cones. They're helpful and they're fun and they're great markers to have your lesson flow, especially if you're doing a lot of movement and playing a lot of games. So before we go, I will see if I can get a goal. Yes, goal. So a few more props, balls, and these are smaller size balls. We explored the exercise ball and the uses for that in a movement meditation mindfulness session. But small balls are helpful too, just different size as we build fine and gross motor skills for children. I think they're wonderful tools for rolling and giving a little gentle massage, self-massage, or while children are holding restorative postures. Wonderful tool for that. Great sensory input from the rolling for kids who require that extra sensory input. I love to play sneaky ways to do core, passing the ball by holding it in the feet and passing it from one player to the next. That's a fun little game we play, and kids are so unaware that they're working their core. It's fun, it's playful, and they're getting a really nice strong core out of it. So that's just some ways you can bring bowls into your practice and use them. I love hula hoops as well. So you see I've got a kiddo-sized one and a really young, small child-sized one, and then a regular-sized child's one. And these come in all shapes and sizes. These are great for communication games, passing the body through the hoop and then passing it to the next person without breaking a link in the chain. And we do that standing. It's a lot of fun. It's fun for adults to play too. I've played that game in a lot of my professional development trainings, and it's always a huge hit. But it's fun with the kids, and we learn coordination, communication, and of course you've got to work on your flexibility a little bit, and patience, of course, as you pass the hoop. I also like these too because sometimes we don't have the ideal setup and yoga mats, and something like this can be enough just to identify our space and set up a boundary. So if you don't have a lot of space, but you still want children to be able to identify, hey, this is my space and this is where I'm working today, something like a hula hoop I'm a little bit big for this one, but can just define, hey, this is my spot, this is my space. So that's wonderful too.
So we just explored a whole bunch of props. I didn't go as far in the bean bags as I would like to. I'm just going to show a couple of other uses for the bean bag, even though we will be covering a lot of games in a future webinar when we come back in August after the break. But juggling is a really great mindful tool that I love to use with bean bags. Playing beanbag toss games. I have, you'll see these handy dandy cards. Actually, I'm going to put this to full screen. Just I think it might be a little better to see as I demonstrate these props. So I have these cards that I've made, and they've got a single point, a 2-point, and a 3-point. So I'll display these spaced out on a mat or on a carpet or on a floor. Have a marker where the child will stand, and we take a breath and center ourselves and toss the beanbag to the markers and see if we get what's equivalent to a free shot in basketball, or a 2-pointer if you're inside that semicircle or the arch, or the 3-pointer if you're outside that arch and the ball's being defended and you still get it and you get a 3-pointer. So obviously I arrange these according to difficulty. So that's a great way to play There's a really fun game that I play with, especially for children learning their shapes. And it's one of those games where it's an active meditation game that gets so loud and so silly with lots of laughter, and you would never believe that kids are meditating, but they are so 100% focused. And well, I'm going to leave that one. I'm going to leave that air of suspicion because I'm going to demonstrate that game when we explore games a few weeks from now. So let's go back to our props. So we went through parachutes, musical instruments, puppets, beanbags, traffic cones, hula hoops, and balls. And now I'm just going to go through a whole bunch of props and demonstrate those to you, or at least discuss some of the uses for them. So we have a little baggie of animals here. So we have just some fun little animals. And we have the bendy ones, and I love the bendy ones because these are fun for children, because at the end of the session we can bend these into the shapes of our favorite yoga postures or yoga-based stretches or whatever the favorite part of class was. So it's another chance for children to explore and demonstrate what they really enjoyed. Also a chance to review what they learned. These inside a bag that's not clear, like I have them, this is just how I store my stuff, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But if I had this in a bag that you could not see what's inside, we can kind of do what I call a lucky dip and see what we pull out, and then work together to create a shape or a breathing technique or a mindfulness activity based on this animal. And then the next child could take a turn, and we're going to do the elephant. So that's just one example. You will notice I use plastic, and we're going to talk about this in a moment. So feathers, we've used these for meditation and mindfulness practices, and lots of fun in a class. If you reviewed the previous webinars, we cover that. I'm not going to go into exactly how we use them today, but you notice how I have them stored again in these plastic baggies. And I like this because a child can see, what color feather would you like? Oh, I would like the green one. This way, I, as the teacher, can then go in and take the green one and give it to the child. That way, no, I'm the only one dipping my hand in here, because once we love children, that's why we work with them, but they're germy little creatures. Just kidding, we love them. We want to keep our communal props safe. Now, something like this, a feather, once a child has a feather, and especially when we're blowing on it and brushing the skin with it, it's theirs to keep forever. We are done. We don't want the feather back in this bag. So that's why I like these resealable bags. We can distribute props safely. Kids can see and identify what they want without opening it and sticking their hand in. Teacher has complete control, can reseal the bag and put it away. And that way there's no chance that a feather that's been touching a face, been blown on, is going to go back into your supply bag. So that's why we do that. And you'll see I have these lovely big feathers. These are wonderful for waking up. And if a child does fall asleep in relaxation, this is a really nice, gentle way to wake the child up. Obviously, we tell the child first, before, at the start of the session, tell children, hey, if you happen to fall asleep, that's okay. It just means you needed to sleep. And the magic wake up feather will be waking you up. Okay, and we'll discuss feathers more again in sensory processing, but we have worked with them a lot in the previous webinars on meditation and mindfulness. So lots of different uses for feathers, and you may even come up with some more on your own, but they're just a nice, fun prop for children. And we have storybooks are wonderful. This is a Dr. Seuss's ABC book. I recommend you read the story, you familiarize yourself with the story, and really think about what movement, meditation, mindfulness activities you could do for each page. And you'll see here, I have on the back of my book what I call a cheat sheet. It is a little posture guide that I created for this book. So I can be holding the book, reading the story, and I have access to my plan just in case I forget it. And that way you can do that with lots of books, have them on your shelf, have a stuff, and you always have a go-to class ready to go. So that's a fun way to incorporate stories as popular storybooks into your movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions for children. Stickers. These are my I Did Yoga Today stickers. I'll just bring them a little bit closer. So these are great reward for children. You don't have to get fancy and have them say I did yoga. Even just a star or a happy smiley face sticker is fine. I also use stickers for my children for left and right. So if I'm teaching a group, I will not single out a child because they are still learning their left and right when everyone else may have mastered it. I will put it on everybody's mat. And that way I'm not singling anybody out. You don't need to be fancy and get L and R stickers like me. You could, again, just put a sticker on the left and the right has no sticker, or perhaps on the hand. So it's really subjective, but it's a nice tool to use when children are learning to identify their left and right. It can be helpful for you too as a teacher, because often you are mirroring when you're working with children. So to have something on the wall where you flip it to help you if it's a little bit tricky for you, that's also a little yoga teacher trick, just to file away. And then we have masks. Masks are fun and playful. You can make your own masks as part of the crafting process and then create a movement, meditation, mindfulness session based on the masks. So I have a cutout one where we can color it first and then wear it and make our little story or our movement, meditation, mindfulness adventure. And then I have store-bought ones, which are fun and playful for kids too. And a lot of these fun props, I will go to Michael's, I will go to the dollar section in Target, the dollar store, and just see what's there. And often I find inspiration, and then you don't have to spend a lot of money too. And of course, the option to create your own masks is wonderful. That's a very valuable component of a session when working with children, is to utilize something that they have created themselves. There's a lot of sense of pride in that, as we've discussed in previous episodes. Of course, we've used the Hoverman Sphere a lot. Great tool, helpful for teaching breathing. It's eye-catching, a lot of fun for children. I'm putting that aside because I'm going to talk about how we clean these props too in just a moment. And I had mentioned earlier shapes and having tactile input as much as visual input when we're working with children. So these are fun little foam shapes that I found, and a child can feel the shape, see the shape, and then recreate the shape with their body with your assistance and guidance. So these are props can be not just a wonderful support to theme your classes around, but really educational and supportive of a child's development too, and helping you to teach children and appeal to different learning styles, because everyone learns differently. And if you're hitting each of the learning styles with your planning, with your props, you are going to be able to support children with different needs. And of course, we have flashcards of fun, and you'll notice mine are laminated. So we're going to talk about that in a moment too. but just fun, colorful images on good quality stock. So flashcards are very, very helpful. And just a couple more. We've worked with silk scarves in the past, in previous webinars. These are the expensive juggling scarves. They do move beautifully and fluidly. You can get cheap ones on that don't move quite so well, but you can get these on Oriental Trading. You could use pieces of tulle, you could use Kleenex. It doesn't have to be the fancy juggling scarves. I happened to find these on eBay. A magic store was closing out, so I bought them on closeout and I got a really good deal. So I got very, very lucky and I bought over 100 of them. However, they are quite expensive if you don't find, like I did, a magic store that's closing out. So a bucket is a fun tool as well. I just have some more flashcards here. So, and I will pull these ones out because I think these are a great tool too. So these are more obscure animals that, so younger children, and we're going to explore this when we go through developmental stages, but younger children, we want to incorporate animals that they readily recognize. So really young children, a cat, a dog, a bird, keeping it very simple. But as children are getting older, exposing them to animals from different parts of the world and different regions and different breeds and species of familiar animals can be educational as well. So we can pull different props in and support academic learning as much as we are kinesthetic and tactile learning through the use of props. I'm going to leave it there. Actually, just the last one, because I know I have this on my list on my slide. I have little foam shaped stickers. So these are a fun little tool to incorporate in your sessions as well. So lots of, and again, just like the feathers, something like this, the children keep. And I think that encourages an at-home practice as much as it does make it fun and engaging while they're participating in your session. So we covered most of the ones on the screen here. One that I didn't is washable paints. So you can see where we've got our image of our child with feet painted. I mentioned when we were talking about props in the video demonstration of painting a dot on the hand that aligns with the marker on the mat for children that are, you know, need a little extra assistance in body placement. So bringing washable paints in can be fun. You could even do face painting if you have the time in your session instead of masks. So lots of fun ways to incorporate creative experiences and a lot of sensory input and stimulation in your sessions to make it fun and engaging, but also highly beneficial for kids. So cleaning and storing equipment and props. We talked about the soft props, the pom-poms, the feathers, straws. Really, none of those things should be reusable or reused. So what you want to do is exactly as I showed you, have them so you can display the props, but then sealable away, put it away. At the end, you have so many kids who have been raised to help pack up, and they'll come and they'll try to give it back to you. It's like, hey, you can just put it in the trash can, or you can keep it and take it home. Storing and dispensive soft, so that's how we store and dispense soft props or props that are single use. Stuffed animals. I feel very, very strongly about stuffed animals. I pointed out that the animals I showed you earlier were plastic. We want to use props that can easily be wiped down and disinfected. So a stuffed animal, when I see those used in any group session with children, it makes me cringe because all I see are germs. And I'm not necessarily a super germaphobe, but in that, we want to keep children safe. You want to keep yourself safe. So absolutely no stuffed animals unless they belong to the child and you're working one-on-one. So no other children are going to come in contact with that stuffed animal. Your one-on-one is the child's stuffed animal. That's okay. That's the only exception to this rule. Laminated flashcards. This keeps your flashcards safe, sturdy, durable, but you can wipe them down easily and disinfect them. So let's take a look at disinfectant. So I have, I think these are just the Target brand disinfecting wipes. These, you can get the Greenworks one. You could make your own antibacterial disinfecting wipes or spray, just as long as you're using something. And every time you use a prop or bring it into a session, even if it's not used, clean it down. If you start doing that and make that a habit, your props will always be clean and safe for children for the next use. Now, I work in a hospital setting, in a clinical setting, so I have to use even stronger stuff. And these are the ones I use. You can find them on Amazon. They're Super Sani cloths, and they're a clinical grade antibacterial disinfecting wipe. I use gloves when I use this on equipment. Now, yoga mats get wiped down, straps can be washed, yoga blocks can be wiped down as well. The bolsters and pillows, removable covers that can be washed in unscented detergent. So non-scented, because you don't want to have anything with any scents, because some children just are hypersensitive and it can be a distraction. And if you're working with children in the clinical setting, they may be sensitive to smell. So just clean detergent that has absolutely no fragrance and hot water. Now, the plastic things like these that are tricky to wipe down, and believe me, I've done it a million times, they can also be dropped into a bucket of hot soapy water as well to disinfect them. And our little animal friends, they can easily be wiped down, like the little plastic animals I just showed you, but they can also be placed in the top shelf of a dishwasher and run it on hot, no soap, don't add any dishwashing pods or anything like that, just run it on a hot cycle with your plastic toys on the top shelf, and that will disinfect them too. Storing props you want to keep once they're been disinfected. Usually if I wipe something down or I clean it with a wipe, it is left just on a shelf, so I know I call it cooking, but I just leave it on the shelf for 48 hours before I use it again after it's been disinfected. And that way I know it's super clean. I'm keeping my kids super safe. So having a separate storage area for your props that you use yourself if you're practicing yoga or if you're working with adults, and one for the kids that you're teaching can be very, very helpful. Keeping things like I had shown you organized as well. This is a class plan ready to go. So that's just having your props already separated out, clean, ready to go in little, I know the Ziploc bags aren't necessarily environmentally friendly, but they're great storage and you can see what's in there, so you can grab and go. And that's a big part of your preparation too when you're leading movement meditation and mindfulness for children and using props. Shared equipment, as I mentioned, don't share it. Everybody gets their own. If you do have shared equipment, as in yoga mats and straps, how I just talked about cleaning them after each use is imperative. Especially when we're working with immune-compromised kids. And my immune-compromised kids, if I have children who do have a compromised immune system, I typically will give them their own brand new equipment, and that's theirs to use in each and every session. We don't use communal props, except for something like the flashcards that may be wiped down, but everything else they get to keep. And then finally, my scarves. If I use these a lot in group sessions, and this is my only exception to the rule, after each and every session that I will bring these out, they come home to my house. They go in one of those little mesh lingerie bags into a hot laundry cycle with an unscented detergent. Now, the hot doesn't work so well for the silk, but like I said, I've got a really good deal on these. So they will be washed until they start to show that, the hem comes undone or they start to look a little worn, and then I pull out new ones. But that's my only exception to the rule, and they are washed each and every time. So keeping yourself safe and keeping children safe is imperative when you're bringing props in, but they are a fun way to really engage children in movement meditation and mindfulness. So why do we theme sessions for kids? We theme sessions so that they are fun and engaging, lots of kid appeal. We theme sessions so that we can be sure in our planning that we are creating something that is developmentally appropriate and developmentally supportive. We are supporting creative thinking and imagination by theming stories and storylines into our movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions. We're supporting kinesthetic and academic learning. So children who may not learn in the typical classroom setting, we can explore educational themes through their movement, meditation, and mindfulness. So for kinesthetic learners, this is a great way to learn. And for all children, it's just a fun way to learn and reinforce what they may be learning in the classroom. Theming can help encourage regular and continued participation. What are we going to do next? Kids get excited about that when they see me. Sometimes they're like, oh, we did the beach last week. What's for this week? What are we going to explore? What are we going to play this week? So it just makes it more engaging and fun. It's something that children really look forward to. And I think themes, especially when you hit a theme that kids love, it encourages self-practice too, because if you're theming something around something they love, so maybe it's not educational, although I'm not saying kids don't love educational topics. I have plenty of kids who are really into dinosaurs, or I've come up with so many different themes just to engage children in something that they love. So that's just one example, but maybe they are really, really, really into Paw Patrol. So if you theme it around Paw Patrol, that encourages practice, and it encourages the child to practice beyond your session. So common generic themes that work well with mixed ages can be festivals and world events like the World Cup soccer or Olympics, or the summer solstice is coming up now. So you can theme your sessions around those events. Holidays such as Valentine's Day or Halloween work well. We could explore the seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall, through a meditation mindfulness practice. We do a beach theme, a park theme, jungle, rainforest, farm animals are all very popular vehicles that you can weave in to engage children. And a lot of these do work well for mixed ages, and they're fairly generic themes, good solid ones to have in your toolbox. And then we come to thinking outside of the box, and some educational ones. You could learn state capitals through movement, meditation, and mindfulness, dinosaurs, math, spelling bee, solar system, botany, geography, so many different things. And then, of course, the fun popular properties, as I discussed earlier with the Paw Patrol was my example, but anything you can think of that children love, you can create a yoga-based movement, meditation, and mindfulness session around. I've even done it on Halo, a video game called Halo, which to come up with something that was peaceful and mindful through some quite aggressive characters was a bit of a challenge, but I did succeed, because even in those aggressive seeming video games, there's always some good guys. So you just got to dig a little deep and find it, communicate with the child, involve them in the practice, and you can come up with something together. So there's lots of ways to engage children and to theme the sessions in something that they really enjoy, or something that's going to reinforce their academic learning as well. So I'm going to show a beach and an alphabet and a number theme lesson plan. So here we have on the screen, you have a movement, meditation, and mindfulness beach theme. So you'll see we've got the introduction, we have the mindfulness component, we move through the warm-up, rolling out our towel and identifying our personal space with our yoga mat or beach towel, going through a little warm-up sequence. And then we're going into our movement adventure, and it's all based on the beach. We're swimming, we're body surfing. And then our activity game is a snorkeling trip where we explore the different sea creatures we see on a snorkeling trip. And the snorkel is a breathing technique, but it's also a great transition piece. If you remember, we discussed pacing and transitions in an earlier webinar. So pacing and transition. If we are putting on the snorkel and taking a breath in between each snorkel journey and exploring each sea creature, we're recentering the children. So we're helping to keep the energy flow and modulate the mood of the class through this grounding breathing technique in between, even though we're incorporating it and making it a fun game and part of the theme. That's actually what we're doing. It's a class management tool. So, and then we have more of the movement adventure, playing in the sand and coming into some more supine and winding down stretches in our movement portion. And then we have some mindful breathing activity, belly boat float, so a folded belly boat on the belly, and then some guided relaxation. So you see how I've taken the basic structure that we've discussed already in essential elements of and the sequencing format for a movement meditation and mindfulness session, and I've threaded the theme all the way through. So it's following the beach theme. And we will show the number and the ABC. I have these handy dandy number cards and alphabet cards. These are great. You can find these on my website. They're making the shapes of the alphabet and numbers with the body. And we've tied it in here. So we'll just quickly go through. We have the introduction talking about what numbers are for, using numbers to count the breath for our mindfulness portion. Then we've got our warm-up and counting the number of the flows. We'll do a warm-up flow, but we'll count the numbers. So we're starting to count and identify numbers. And then we're learning the numbers through the cards and creating the shapes with the body. That's our movement adventure. And then we have some games. Both of these sets each come with lots of different games and uses. You would think, because they're ABC and number card, they're just for smaller children learning and identifying numbers and letters, but they really aren't. I use these for older kids for spelling bees and math problems as well. So there's lots of uses and they cover all ages. Again, these are available on my website. They're a great tool. And today I'm just using them as an example to discuss, to show how I use these as a tool or a prop to support my theme of number and alphabet. So this is an alphabet soup theme, and you'll see the intro. We talk about making alphabet soup. We talk about being a floppy noodle. So our warm-up then is the spaghetti running around the room and warming up and really loosening up the body as if we're spaghetti in a pot, in a boiling pot. So we start slow, stiff, and then we start to really loosen up and warm up the body. And of course, creating the shapes using the flashcards. So that's our movement adventure portion. And then we have games. We have spelling the child's name using the yoga-based stretches or shapes. We have spelling bee games, and I have a ton more. Each set comes with suggested games, and I can't remember exactly how many, but there's at least 8 games for each set, and probably more actually for one. And then we have movement meditation and mindfulness. Meditation mindfulness. Just imagining the belly after we have eaten our alphabet soup. So you can see how we've tied the theme in to support the sequence and flow. So it's not broken up and choppy. It all flows together, and it can engage the child from start to finish of your movement meditation mindfulness plan. So expressive therapies, music and song. We're going to explore music and song today. They're a wonderful complement to movement meditation and mindfulness sessions. Arts and crafts and journaling we're going to cover in a future webinar. So today we're just covering music and song. So we, as humans, respond very positively to music. Creating sound and experiencing music together is very unifying. Listening to our inner heartbeat, playing, singing together, listening to our breath together. It's joyful, it's uplifting, and of course, again, it's unifying. Singing and playing music and interacting together encourages eye contact and social interaction. So that's, again, very supportive of social development. We can support and communication and language skills through music and song. Playlists. So if you've got a playlist playing, it can support your theme. It can add to the fun, the sense of fun. It can aid pacing if you're aware of, oh, this is the slow, mild portion, so we're just doing our mindfulness, and now it gets a little more lively for our movement adventure. That can just help you as a teacher as well. It can also help to set the mood and tone for your students while you're pacing and moving through transitions of your session. So my suggestions are nature sounds or ocean sounds as well, and just outdoor sounds. These are the ones that I have on my iPod ready for my sessions. Disney instrumental are great. Classical, piano, and jazz, gentle and soothing sounds. Mellow pop, and I like to check that the lyrics are clean and appropriate beforehand. And another really valuable tool I've discovered in my years of teaching is instrumental covers of popular pop songs. And they tend to be more mellow, but still meeting what your teenager thinks is hip and cool at the time. So even if it's a slightly inappropriate language, then you're cutting the language out, so that can make it a little safer. Or if it's just too upbeat for what your goal is, but you still want to acknowledge what the child likes and is into, finding the instrumental mellow version of the song can be helpful without the lyrics to distract as well. And so music, dance, and movement. So movement, we are moving a lot in our movement meditation and mindfulness session, and dance and movement supports the mind-body connection. It supports coordination and sensory development, sensory awareness. Where is my body? How is it moving? How can I control it? And just free dancing and moving around, and we'll explore this in games. It helps children to really explore their body freely, finding their own interpretation for movements and stretches introduced in your session. So I always allow time for that, for free expression. And that's just very helpful developmentally for children, physically, but also socially. And so just to recap, music and song supporting for engagement. Music and song support breathing. Music and song can reinforce learning. It can encourage language development. I recommend you sing popular songs that kids know and can relate to. That's part of the engagement, part of education, and just to make your sessions interesting and educational is to expose children to nursery rhymes from different cultures or different eras. Or even changing the words of popular nursery rhymes can be fun. So you've got one on the screen there, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. If you see an alligator, don't forget to scream, ah! And kids get a giggle out of that one. So you can change the words of popular ones too, just to make it fun and silly and playful for children. So that wraps up today. I went a little over time, and I do apologize for that. There was a lot to cover. I hope you join me next time for the 3 C's: communication, connection, and class management. Until then, I wish you a wonderful